Let's drill down now on the president's change in Cuba policy. Republican Mario Diaz-Balart represents South Florida in the U.S. House, and he joins us tonight from Miami. Congressman, you originally wanted a much tougher policy change by President Trump that would give Cuba 90 days to set up fair and free elections, or the U.S. would put them back on the state sponsor of terrorism list. Why did you back down, sir?
I haven't backed down, Chris. The important thing is to stand with the Cuban people and the national security interests of the United States and to adhere to the law. That is what President Trump is in fact doing. President Obama gave concessions to the Castro regime, by the way, asking for nothing in return, and he got nothing in return other than an increase in the repression, an increase of participation of Russian spy ships, for example, going to the island. This president understands that our partners are not the Cuban regime. Our partners have to be the Cuban people. So it's good for the Cuban people. It's also good for the national security interests of the United States. And if you believe in the rule of law, this actually enforces the law. This is a win-win all the way around. But
this is a halfway measure, and it's definitely weaker than what you were originally calling for. And the result is that the U.S. Embassy will stay open, that U.S. cruise ships and airliners will continue to serve the island. So how tough a message are you really sending to the Castro regime?
Well, again, you just have to look at the response from the Castro regime. They're actually quite concerned. Chris, there are a lot of options that were put on the table. So the important thing is what I just told you. What we've always thought and we've always said is that it makes no sense if you believe that you're helping the Cuban people, like President Obama did, by helping to fund the repressive machinery and the intelligence services that are repressing the Cuban people. Well, that's what obviously President Obama's policies did. This reversed that. This will have stricter controls, as the law requires, on travel. This will not allow folks to help enrich the Cuban military and the Cuban intelligence services. President Obama is demanding the return of fugitives from U.S. law, or frankly, terrorists that are harbored by the Cuban regime. If the regime would do all those things, again, all the sanctions go away. The law is very clear. All they have to do in Cuba for all the sanctions to go away is release the political prisoners, allow for some basic freedoms like freedom of the press, political parties, labor unions, start the process towards elections. All the sanctions then go away. And the question is that too much to ask for? Today, President Trump made it very clear that he stands with the Cuban people and not with the oppressors that have been, again, repressing that country for now close to 60 years.
What about the argument, Congressman, from the other side that 50, 60 years of no relations at all didn't accomplish very much? We've had this policy of engagement now for, what, about 3 years? Less than that, actually, 2.5 years. Why not give it more chance?
A couple things, Chris. We could have that argument then. We should get rid of the sanctions with North Korea. We should get rid of the sanctions with Iran. Well, President Obama did a lot to try to do that. But here's the question. What is in the national security interest of the United States? To stand up to a regime that continues to be as anti-American, to do as much to hurt U.S. national security interests now as they ever have, who harbor U.S. terrorists and fugitives from U.S. law, who every step of the way, in every moment of their existence, they're trying to hurt and undermine U.S. national security interests. What's in our national interest? To stand up to that, or just to do what President Obama did, which is get rid of all the sanctions possible while asking nothing in return? What works is pressuring the regime diplomatically and financially and helping the opposition. That's the only thing that has worked, by the way, to bring freedom to closed societies. President Trump, once again, is adhering to the rule of law. He is standing by the Cuban people, and we do not have to fear anymore watching on the television an American president doing the wave with the Cuban dictatorship who has blood on his hand, not only of Cubans, but also of American citizens.
Congressman Diaz-Balart, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Always a privilege. Thank you, sir.